Welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast, a show for people who are obsessed with all things marketing. I'm your host, Veronica Rami, certified master marketer, international keynote speaker, workshop facilitator, and the author of a new book called Identity Marketing. Each week, I interview rainmakers from brands big and small to pull back the curtain on what's actually working in marketing today. We dig into real life wins and losses, and there's very real consequences, and get into spicy discussions of marketing controversies and opposing philosophies. This is the real marketing thought leadership you've been looking for in your ears on demand. This is the Rainmaker Podcast. Welcome back to the Rainmaker Podcast. I'm so excited to bring to you Paolo Salmon from the agency King Ursa. He is a serial entrepreneur. He's an agency owner. He's actually just a really nice guy. And wait until you hear the story of how he got his wife to be on the Ellen DeGeneres show by accidentally going viral on Reddit. We talked about that. We talked about his predictions or what he looks forward to most in 2025, certainly as a marketer, creative, as an agency owner. We talked about, what we feel is really exciting about new distribution channels. We even kind of got into politics, which is really interesting because he's Canadian based, I'm US based. But we, again, as marketers, you see things from a marketing lens at all times. You'll hear that, back and forth. I think that you'll really enjoy. But ultimately, I think the one thing that shined through in this interview is just relatability and trust. It's definitely going to be the red thread through this conversation that I think you'll enjoy most. So without further ado, please welcome my guest. Paolo, welcome to the Rainmaker Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you, sir. I was very impressed with your presentation at the gathering back in October 2023. You said something, you had very, very good mic drop moments. I don't think you give yourself enough credit for being a good speaker outside of your pictures and your deck and everything like that. But one of the things that you said that I was like, ooh, what a good one. You said attention delusion disorder. I was like, damn. Can you explain? Let's start right in the deep end of the pool.
Mhm.
What does that mean to you when you say attention delusion disorder?
So we are, and just to set the field. I want to make sure that you're aware and everyone is aware that I am not a media expert by any means. I come from creative advertising, and I am an entrepreneur, and I do run an ad agency. I love tech, and I am curious about tech, and I'm curious about everything. Since I was started as an art director, I've been curious about everything around my world and what I was doing and whatnot. So, um, what led me to believe that there is a delusion in the attention in this attention economy that is happening today is that the first fact is that it became we're faced now with an attention economy, and because attention is scarce, or limited, I should say. And that said, uh, uh, technology, so many factors like technology advancements, cultural globalization, everything around that has been changed the playing field. And the I think there's a misconception, or marketers are many times believe that the answer is very simple. I mean, you either pay to play, and it's just paid versus earned, and it's a simple math. And what you pay you get, and what you willing to invest time you earn. And the push and pull, it's simple strategies, and that's how it work. And I think that it used to be a lot more controlled that way, but nowadays there are so many factors that prove that this theory is wrong. Like what you're paying for a lot of times, and I'm not talking about even starting with reporting and how it's being bought, or the strategies behind. That's just the beginning of it, but the source itself, and how can we trust, how much can we trust, how much trust we're putting in the sources of the media and spaces that we're buying. And there are so many factors and so many layers to it,
Mm.
that if 10% of each layer or 1% of each layer is not clear as it should, it sums up to a pretty big what do you call it, miss strategy, or misuse,
Sure.
or wastage of investment.
See, I'm a recovering agency owner, still recovering. Like, I've been a
You got
marketer.
away. Good for you.
I did. I am proudly identify myself as a marketer for 17 years. And one of those eras of those 17 years was having my own agency in South Florida. It's probably the hardest thing I've ever, it's the hardest business model I've ever tried to do. And we did it for years, but it's so difficult. And we sold it 2019, summer 2019, right before like the pandemic. So it was hallelujah. But like, I think about my agency owner friends and colleagues today and like, damn, I don't even know how you guys are doing it, because how can you even show to your paying clients the magnitude of what it is that you do when the metrics are so messy? It's gotten worse and worse and worse. And then one of the other things that you said that I thought was brilliant, you're like, I think people are misdefining what your audience means. Your audience is not your 20,000 followers, Veronica, or your number of subscribers, your number of people on your email list. Your audience is only the people who are paying attention to you, which is not that full number. And I was like, ooh. But then again, like, again, you are the agency in which your clients are coming to you to hopefully positively influence that metric. But with data being messy, with attention being a delusion,
Mhm.
how do you then justify your worth? This is why, like, I just kind of bow my head to these agency owners who are still in the game.
Yeah, and so I believe that I continue to believe strongly that we advertising continues to be the stewards of communication
Mm-hmm.
and the experts in communication
I like that.
with people. So the best chance a marketer or company has, or the only or the best, however you want to classify, but to really resonate, to communicate with people out there, resonate
Mm-hmm.
products, benefits, and put together, the need versus the want, and
Yes.
like I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I forgot if that was a question or not. Was that a
Well,
question?
just like, again, you are such a proponent of having a really healthy client agency relationship. How do you do that in
Yes.
AI, in the era of messy metrics where everybody's trying to take credit for the attribution? Like, how do you do that to show that you are the one that's the expert in communicating a company's value and offers?
Correct. So we've always been in the business of getting attention, right? It
Mm-hmm.
has always been advertising
Mm-hmm.
from the beginning of times. That's what we do. We get
Yeah.
attention of people. And although the tools have multiplied and the access has shifted, or sorry, the attention or the control of attention has shifted. I always speak about the revolution of Web 2.0, how social media changed the skill to, the attention, or the information is in the hands of people versus, the one-way communication that used
Mm-hmm.
to be, so
Mm-hmm.
on. So everything has changed, but we continue to bring value by just making the absolute best recommendation of how to reach people in the
Mm-hmm.
most the best the best mix between intuition, which plays a huge part in what we do, um, um, as well as data and tools and so on. So there is art just as much as there's art in architecture
Mm-hmm.
and so many other practices. I believe in creativity, in human creativity, and creativity is everywhere. But there is, a giant art approach and creativity to it, that brings the trends, the influence or be influence and all of that. And there has to be as well an evolution on just as fast as the world is evolving, there the tools are evolving, the advertising practice needs to evolve with it,
Totally.
right? So and those changes are hard to
You
embrace.
brought up intuition.
Yeah.
It always perks my attention when a man brings up intuition, because what I understand about the female mind and the female gut is that we are more literally, like, naturally inclined to listen to our intuition. And so the fact that you, as this experienced creative is talking about intuition. I love that. Can we talk about that? Like, where do you find your inspiration, your sources of intuition? How do you when you're in the chaos of agency life and you're dealing with this client and that client, your P&L and this and that, like, how do you make space to even listen to your body, to listen to your intuition? I'm very curious how you find it and how you give it space.
That's a very good question. I find that for me, being a leader, you need to constantly work on your foundation in order to be able to make recommendations, decision, help them make decisions,
Mm-hmm,
and bring the best out of people.
mm-hmm,
And I believe I I do work on my spiritual side. I'm not a religious person. I am but I have an inclination, and I was brought up Christian, like 99% of South Americans.
mm-hmm.
I meditate. I work on. I read a lot.
Yeah.
I love reading books, and I'm very. I read Stoicism, so you look for foundations in order to
Mm-hmm,
set yourself
mm-hmm.
to be as prepared as possible for what's going to, as you can't prepare for everything, but um, because I believe that is key for you to always go back to your and be able to see clearly in all the decisions and all the problems and everything that comes, see clearly and never forget the purpose of why you started
Mm.
your purpose for being there, and the purpose for the company to be there. And I find that, as in my position today, this is my my biggest accountability. I'm accountable to hold on to the vision and make sure the vision is, whether if we're all moving together with a vision, it's, but we're doing consciously, and I'm there
I love that.
to make sure it's always there. And
Yeah.
I think that's the only way I believe to stay.
Well, especially if you have employed young professionals who are kind of coming up in their careers and stuff like that, by the veterans to see them being more intentional with their own self development and then passing that forward. When I work or when I speak to creatives, I love hearing them tell me stories about some of their favorite campaigns or some of their, both the good and the bad. Like, there's no failing, there's just lessons. But like, I would love for you to tell a story of some of your favorite creative campaigns that you've been able to execute with your clients, or even the campaign that taught you the biggest lesson. Do you want to tell us some stories?
Campaign.
Yeah, just some of your favorite creatives that you've ever pulled off.
I'll give you a fun story
Okay.
that you know about me. It might not. It's not a campaign,
Okay.
but I never speak about it because my wife, every time I mention it, she's like, "Don't bring that up." We and I rarely talk about this, but it's because we have so many campaigns, and our campaigns are, I'm so proud of so many of them, and it's hard to pick one. Like, as a creative, when you asked me, I went back to when I was a creative director, going like, oh yeah, there were some, no, but I gotta talk about one from the agency, like, and I'm like, okay, but which one? Like, it's hard for it would be hard for me to pick, but there's one story that I can tell you that I'm a Reddit. I've been on Reddit for over 15 years. I love it. I'm a power user. I'm there. Like, that's where I get my news. That's what
That's cool.
For 15 years, I'm like, I love Reddit. And at the beginning, sorry, it was about 10 years ago. Was it 10 years ago? About 7 years ago, perhaps. You'll be able to check that out on YouTube. I used to make more videos and put it on my Reddit account to test, to see, how people would react. And I'd like to be part of it too. And like, do a little cat video of my cat and to be part of the community, and and see how. And I'm always like answering questions, asking questions, and so on. And one day I was in a car with my wife and decided to. She was like high on sugar, like M&Ms, and she was rapping a Salt and Pepper song, and like just rapping in a car, like nobody was looking. And I filmed her with my phone facing like on a side, and as she could see, if she, so she see the face of the phone, right? And she's saying for a bit and I record, and at some point she looks at the phone, she sees it. She's actually sees now that I'm
Caught.
recording and catch me. And it's like, Paulo. And I laughed and I put it on Reddit. And just to, for fun, it's like, hey, caught my wife singing in a car, singing like nobody's watching. Who cares? Like, it's fun and whatnot. I kid you not, 2 days later or a day later, it reached like top front page of Reddit. And I'm in the kitchen going like, Chelsea, the video that I just
You
remember
went
the video that I
viral.
just posted, and because I asked her like, "Do you mind if I post?" She's like, "Yeah, I don't care." And I posted, and I was like, "It's on the first page of Reddit," and she's like, "What's Reddit again?" I'm like, "Just don't
Yeah,
worry
don't
about
worry about
it."
it.
And like it's pretty. So hours later, I get a call from Warner Brothers, and Ellen DeGeneres is asking if my wife wants to go on stage and sing with her. And I'm like, I pick up the phone, I look at her, it's like, so do you want to go sing with Ellen DeGeneres on stage? And she's like, sure. I like, and off we went, and we got flew to Ellen's show, and there's a video of her on stage with
Oh
Ellen,
my gosh.
she got a commercial after that for Acura and whatnot, and then she never wanted to touch it again. She's like, I don't want, this is not my career. I don't want to do this. And but to say it wasn't a campaign, but the power of social media, or like the power of community, online communities, and that has in.
Yeah, but do you know what's so beautiful about that story, other than like your wife accidentally goes viral, is just the relatability.
Yeah,
It's so pure. Like there she was, just like high on sugar, high on life, just singing a song,
yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, got him. And then you decided to share this really beautiful, like some of the best speakers I know, they don't have these extraordinary stories where they like summited Everest with one leg. Most of my favorite speakers they have some of the most relatable stories that they can then translate into a lesson. Picking up your kids from the carpool line, or taking a video of your wife singing in the car. Like it's just so pure, it's just so relatable to so many people. So I think that's the magic in that.
Absolutely. So
That's
yeah, so
cool.
that's it was it went
That's really
global.
cool. I like
Yeah,
that.
we got calls from Japan, Germany, like it was insane. This is like
Yeah, that's wild.
40 million views, and anyways, it's
That's wild.
yep.
So here's my question, because we are recording this at the beginning of the year of 2025, and last year was a lot. Last year, for marketers, for consumers, for brands, it was an interesting year. It was very stifling and politically, like there was a lot going on.
Hmm.
Talking about attention grabbing, attention, attention,
Hmm.
attention, and now, even these newscasters, they're quitting their networks, but they're starting their own YouTube channels. Like it's just wild to see the distribution of attention go elsewhere than traditional routes. What do you, as you look forward to a new year,
Hmm.
as a creative, as an agency owner, as somebody who has been prolific and longstanding in this space,
Hmm.
what are you excited about? What are you terrified about? Like, what is it that you're hoping happens this year for us in this space?
Um, so I am excited for most part, because I believe that what I the the reason why I this business actually took form and it is what it is today. It's part of what I believe is my journey
Mm-hmm.
in this planet, and I think uh, the one thing that guides me is honesty, transparency, and to build trust.
Mm.
And trust, actually, I had the year before that you watched me on stage was trust in relationships and work environments was the topic of my speaking.
Mm.
And I truly believe that even more now this year, with all the changes that are happening in the advertising industry and all the challenges that marketers are going through, trust
The answer.
is the answer that every I believe is going to stand out
Mm.
more than anything.
Mm.
Big network agencies, getting together, merging for profitability reasons, or for perhaps on their own defense, to try to make sense of all those changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
have been are giving signs of how much smaller businesses, I'd say small to mid-sized agencies, will be the ones able to provide that full transparency, that trust, that attention that
Mm-hmm.
clients are looking for, and are able to do it with and still be profitable, right? Because that's
Yeah, that is the thing.
the yeah, that's the challenge as well, right?
Yeah. That's the battle of agency life is profitability. It's the constant. It's so hard just to have
Yes.
margins when you're only as excellent as the people that you employ delivering the service, and they are more expensive than ever before, and then your clients can't afford the budgets they used to, so it's like you're just being shrunk from top to bottom, right?
Yes, and I always say just on that, like I always remind everyone that we are in the service business,
Yep.
and in the service business, there are levels of service that you should be looking for as a
Yep.
business, evaluating that not every agency is not for everyone. Some are might be too expensive or not
Totally.
expensive enough, and
Totally.
so you do look for the expertise and and need to hire and can hire and should only hire what
Mm.
is right for you, right? That's the trick as well.
I've been talking. I released my first ever marketing book last week.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. It's like giving birth. I was like 42 weeks pregnant and I needed to get out.
Wow.
But I've been, talking a lot with people about the concepts of the book. And the one thing that I keep telling everybody is that, like, I genuinely believe it's the small business owner that is the most perfectly suited, positioned individual category of humans that can provide trust,
Mhm.
proximity, intimacy, honesty, transparency. Because when you're too big, right? When you've now hit this threshold of scalability, it's very hard to maintain that level of intimacy when you've gone just too big and you answer to too many people and there's too many people to serve.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I agree with you. I feel like the buyer of 2025 is desperately seeking somebody that will help them feel truly seen,
Mhm.
and who better to do that than the small business owner that can remain agile and nimble and intimate with their customers and their clients?
Mhm.
And so I totally agree with you. I think it's scaling is out and intimacy is in.
Mhm. Mhm. And I think you can. There are so many theories about scale and how much you can keep that
Mm-hmm.
in terms of numbers of
Mm-hmm.
people. There's at least in advertising, I've seen a few theories about what is the right number, how much is too
Yeah.
much, and
The
whatnot.
tipping point, right? Too many clients, too few clients, where you can't have your margins and your profitability. Like,
Yeah,
it's agency life. Again, I bow my head to you guys because it's so hard.
it is. It is. It's been. We're still like so many. We're still working from still compensating for the
Totally.
damage that the pandemic. Uh,
Totally. I understand.
Many agencies in Canada closed, and majority of them are still catching up from
Yeah.
the losses that we had, including ours. So like it's yeah, it's no easy times for any entrepreneur, any
Understood.
business, but
Understood.
us
I
included.
agree. I think it's refreshing, though. I've talked to a lot of my peers who, if I had talked to them at the beginning of 2024 or 2023, like, scale, 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 like, ah. And now when I talk to them in 20, like, nope, not scale, simple, simplify, scale back. I'm like, interesting. I think there is a little bit of a renaissance occurring, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
So we do this fun thing on the podcast because I get to ask you whatever I want.
Okay.
Now it's only fair, though, if you get to ask me whatever you want as the final question of the conversation.
What is your perspective on podcasting and the future of podcasts in the next
So many
years?
things. So I like this question. This is a good question. I have very strong opinions about this. Because I'm in the US, you're in Canada, but when we concluded our US election, right, in November 2023, where Donald Trump got elected as president again, which is just insane. Like, the insanity of that whole election, without getting, I'm not even talking about politics. Like, it's not where I stand on anything or where I believe certain policies should be. I'm just talking about it from a marketing perspective. Like, you want to talk about marketing at, like, the highest level in the Coliseum of Coliseums, it's going to be political, right? Marketing and politics.
Yep.
And so watching it was fascinating for me. Like, what could we as small business owners extract from what we're seeing play out in political marketing spheres? And a couple different observations that I had, and I did a whole like autopsy, like this is what I thought, but one of the big ones was like, you cannot tell me that podcast did not sway an election. He did not do the traditional media circuit. He did not go on these big networks like he did before, because they were always going to like just, tear him apart. Where he shined, I'll be honest with you, like he's not a very likable character. But where his likability skyrocketed was when he was just in these podcast conversations with some weird characters. Theo Vaughn is insane. Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman, like he was on all, and it wasn't just him. It was JD Vance. It was Tulsi Gabbard. It was what's the other guy's name? I don't know. Now it's like the Avengers. Like there's so many of them. Elon, right?
Yeah.
But as they would go into these podcast interviews on camera, unscripted, is actually where you liked them more, because they weren't as polished, and they didn't have their prepared things like they do in the debate. They weren't trying to land a quote here and a quote factory here. And so it was shocking to see how well being on these podcasts, and then think about the distribution. You want to talk about attention? You go on CNN for 60 minutes, you get how many millions of views. You go on a podcast, how many millions of views on the full podcast versus also how many millions of views on just clips of the podcast that then go viral on TikTok or where. I mean, it was insanity to watch this play out. I'm like, this is genius. And I felt bad for the Kamala Harris campaign, because she didn't jump on that like the same way that the Trump campaign did. They just didn't. And so there's that. Then I also thought, again, back to the whole Avengers, it wasn't just him. It was the all the mini personal brands around him that were positively inflated because of their podcast appearances. So even if you couldn't stand him and you didn't want to vote for him, you're like, but dang it, I really like that JD Vance guy. Like he was unknown. Who the hell was he? Nobody knew who he was. Or I really like Elon and freedom of speech. Or I really like Tulsi Gabbard. She's such a badass. Like even if you didn't like the main guy on the ticket, you really grew to like the characters around him. Because of what? Because of podcast distribution and podcast appearances. So I think it is interesting. I think it's very interesting to see that attention is not in the traditional pockets that you would pay for or seek out or pay a PR agency to land you on the Today Show. Like, I think that is not nearly as important as the distribution of relatable characters like Joe Rogan, and you said Scott Galloway. Like, these are relatable characters where like I could go sit down with this guy, or I could go, they're smoking joints on the podcast. I thought it humanized. I think that's a thing. We took these characters off the pedestal. They were humanized and became wildly relatable, even though they're billionaires. Do you know what I mean? That's my thoughts.
Yep. Very interesting. I absolutely love your perspective. I think the same way too. I think podcast is another proof that people want segment. They want to go after. Remember, radio was here's what's for everybody, for the masses. Still is, right, for the masses. But podcast is the direct. Like, I would just want to listen to this particular, and I can get directly from a person that is professional of that, not a professional speaker.
Exactly.
It's relatable. It's more intimate. It becomes so intimate, with this style brings that. And I find it fascinating.
Watching Donald Trump ask Theo Vaughn if he misses cocaine or misses using, I was like, what is happening right now? Like, that's what I mean. It's just these, that moment in time would never, ever have happened in traditional distribution centers. Right. Ever. It was, or like when Theo Vaughn was like, I like a grape that's been through something. He's talking about a raisin, the dehydrated grape. And JD Vance is like, he can't even contain himself. It's like, what is happening? That's what I mean. It's these beautiful little moments of brilliance. Call it good TV or good, entertainment, but it humanized these characters that are otherwise are they try so hard to be perfect and polished, and we preferred them not to be perfect and polished. I don't know. It's interesting because 2016, when he won the election, is when they, that camp did Facebook ads like we've never seen before. And then this election in 2023 is now distribution channels like we've never seen before. So I'm always very curious, like in 4 years from now or any other political cycle, what's going to be the darling of that season? I don't know. To be seen.
To be this, yeah, we'll be here watching, and
you and I will be watching because we're nerdy people. We're like, this is fascinating.
In Canada, we watch everything from up here too. We
sure.
think it's fascinating. We're like, this is awesome. This is better than soap opera. Let's just keep watching this.
I love my Canadians, but you probably watch us like where it's like The Gladiator. Like, this is some batshit crazy stuff.
Oh yeah, big time. We bring our little chairs and sit right on the board there all together, get a little coffee, and we're like, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be really good.
Well, you're welcome for the show.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for coming on and talking about what you're excited about. I loved your story about your wife. I thought that was so charming. I'm just a big fan of yours. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for considering me. And yeah, I hope to talk to you soon again.
Thanks for listening today. If you've loved what you heard, make sure to rate the show, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us get the Rainmaker podcast in front of more passionate marketers just like you. And if you're ready to transform your marketing from buy this to be this, pick up my new identity marketing book available on my website at veronicarami.com. Until next time, my friends, keep making it rain.